And happy Wednesday, YouTube. Happy Wednesday, everyone. And joining us tonight are my guests, Pinge Music.
Hello.
And Koki Pirate.
Just glad I could make it before it was time for Thursday.
Exactly. You're spoiling the illusion.
You're the fourth wall! You're breaking the fourth wall!
And James.
Yes, the blessings of the great holy donkey be upon you all.
Yes, we had the donkey and the hamster this time, yet again.
Yeah.
And today, we are discussing the issue of trigger warnings on literature for students. And I'm going to go around in the order that... actually, I know that James is the most enthusiastic to talk about this, so I'll go in that order this time. James, if you'd like to... obviously, links in the description. James, if you would like to get the ball rolling on this.
Yes, a college in California, university in California, the student government has requested that trigger warnings for issues such as rape, suicide, and what have you be included in the literature which they are required to study, books such as The Great Gatsby. Yes, as an author myself, as someone who discusses films which do trigger people on YouTube and has unfortunately, unwittingly caused harm to individuals in the past by not including trigger warnings when I linked a Korean film or showed a clip from a Korean film. I believe that this is a vitally important issue. Of course, the article itself, the article itself, most of it is just explaining why the students believe this is important, and the only argument against it is that, well, these are adults, we shouldn't be treating them like babies, etc. And how far is this going to go? Well, what? Are you afraid of wasting computer memory? Are you afraid of wasting paper? How difficult is it to put a trigger warning at the beginning of the relevant art or media? Yes, but then, though, there is the issue that post-traumatic stress disorder, people who are suicidal, people who have survived rape, sometimes it is difficult to know exactly what will trigger them. Alex, are you okay talking about Farscape?
Okay.
Yeah. Tell me if I stop. But Alex and I, a couple of months ago, one of the things we did together over Skype was watch Farscape, and Alex was deeply upset, possibly even triggered, by the female-on-male violence. I actually made a video discussing this issue. But again, the problem was, if I had gone through and scanned the video beforehand, even when I did go through and scan the episode beforehand, I don't perceive it as an issue, so I still gave it the green light, to which Alex, unfortunately, was still upset. But in this digital age, one in which adding a trigger warning is simply a matter of typing trigger warning in the title or the description. It's not like we have to reprint every book. It's not as if it's going to be this great task. It is the age of individual media. So, yes, taking people's individual emotions and needs into account. How is this a bad thing?
Yes, quite. And Pinge?
I get some vibes from the 80s with a hard rock CD. It was by LP, sorry. But anyway, there was like fuck, and then you have the skull on it because they say fuck or so. But on the other hand, when I listen to it, this article about the school thing, I can see the thing in the school that of course you should warn people that are in school for they are actually there to learn something, not to be trigger something up. But then on the other, when you're on the net and on life after, you have to find ways to actually cope with your problems. So trigger warning, and who is going to say? For me, it's like I have panic attacks on trains. Should I put a trigger warning on trains so that? For me, it's like they can't warn me for trains because I know that sometimes it's like that. So I see that thing here. It's like, but on the other hand, it's easy to do in this digital age. It's like say trigger warning, and you hopefully have found out all the things that actually can trigger from people, but do you really?
I just want to say, Pinga, I do understand the point that you're making, and yes, the broader point is correct, but you have to choose to get on a train yourself, and you know that sometimes, or all the time when you're on a train, it can give you a panic attack.
Yeah, but I didn't know that the first time I get on the train and get the panic. I didn't know that. So it's like, I could have, so... But I understand your point there also. But
yes, and again, by the way, this film includes someone being raped and almost beaten to death. Would be a good thing.
Yeah, that can...
Yes, it's watch it. Guys getting on a train. That's something that happens a lot in your life. But watching a film, it's something that most people only do once or twice.
Yeah. But I see that's the thing I have. But on the other hand, as I said, if you're actually writing a book or doing a movie and you know from experience or from, it's not easy to do. Put a label on it and you, why not? But I see the problem here also, because if you don't put a label on, then should you be sued because the label wasn't there? If someone actually do something that you didn't have the label of.
Sorry to be such a pimp for my book, such a shill, but yes, I did recently publish a book, Beauty is Pain by James S. Croft, available now on Amazon. By now, beat the rush. But yes, it is a very... Alex can attest to this. His review of Forgiveness was, why, God, why? But yes, I did strongly consider including a trigger warning in the book itself. Teresa, who was in charge of formatting the book, decided just to put one in the description on the Amazon, on the sales page on Amazon or Lulu where people buy it. But again, I do, because yes, in the past people have been triggered, have had suicidal thoughts, etc., have had panic attacks because I didn't put a trigger warning on a YouTube video. You know, and again, the whole issue of responsibility. Should I be sued if someone gives the book to a friend so they don't read the trigger warning on the Amazon page or the Lulu page, and then they, this looks, oh my fucking God, or to quote Alex, why God, why? Yeah, and yes, if that does cause, if that does trigger them, am I responsible for that? Should I be held accountable? That is a serious question.
As I actually wondered that about my own book, which I actually wrote before I was myself a survivor. where I understand the reasons for the scene, which is actually, you could say comedic, but it's actually, I felt that the comedy was so absurdist, and the meaning and reason for it was so clear that it was justified. I now think, maybe when I advertise this book, and I should actually possibly even apologise to people, because it kind of like, I may not have understood, and people not understanding. Yeah. What gets me is when people take a pig-headed attitude, and I think you can guess the people that I mean, James, whereas some people can, some people can admit it and apologise. And yes, I mean, when somebody showed me Boys Don't Cry, they told me, when to look away and remove the headphones. And that's being considerate. But it takes intelligence and sensitivity to understand it, because some people, if they're dumb and pig-headed and insensitive, you can't explain it to them.
Yes. Again, though, Alex, beyond pig-headedness, and going back to the Farscape example, there were times when, no, I honestly didn't think that it would be an issue, because I've seen Farscape. I don't personally have a problem with it. I understand things like surbation culture, the fact that Aaron's son, the character in question, who commits the most violence in the series, the fact that she is biologically female is irrelevant. She's a peacekeeper. There are only two types of peacekeepers: soldiers and techs. If you're a soldier, you are trained from birth to kill without question and obey orders without hesitation. Male, female, short, tall, old, young. So, yeah, the fact that this peacekeeper was so violent, again, I didn't see that as an issue, but obviously, of course, Alex, you did. So as much as I struggled to be compassionate, as much as I struggled to take your feelings and your issues into account, that fundamental difference of understanding, difference of perception, was still there as an issue. However, again, in the digital age, it's not a question of one person deciding trigger warnings. My book at the moment is printed on paper through Amazon or as an e-book from Lulu. But if you were to show, but the way that the digital age is going, soon everything will be in the cloud. So you could add the trigger warning for other people who, for male survivors of domestic violence or what have you, people who are triggered by female on male violence. Warning: this series includes female on male violence, etc. But again, it's a long way to go before we get to the cloud. So it is largely a question of social evolution until then.
Yes, and I would say that Forgiveness was the story which without wanting to give too many spoilers, that referred back to events. It didn't show them in a particular scene, but I would say it was a very, very dark. My point is, it's actually another story, which I thought was worse. But the thing is with that is I can advise, but obviously, again, one person can't speak for everybody. That was my point there.
Regarding Forgiveness, though, Alex, Forgiveness, the story in my book, I just want to say, first of all, literally your entire review of the story was why, God, why? So any description story, it might not necessarily be a spoiler, but it's good for people to know something about it. It's even if it is a spoiler, a trigger warning is essential, because although you've made the point that the rape, the imprisonment occurred in the past, there is the main story does revolve around self-harm. Again, trigger warning for anyone listening to this podcast who has who has engaged in self-harm or feels compelled to engage in self-harm. It is a deliberate exploitation. It is a deliberate exploration of the slow, methodical, ritualistic nature of self-harm. Way that people do it to relieve guilt and pain.
Yeah.
That is the reason why I wrote it, but also it is the main reason why I feel I should have fought harder to have a trigger warning in the book. Because, yes, it is going to be a serious issue for several people. Indeed, advertising the book, sending links to my friends, actually thinking, "Oh God, is it safe to link this book to some people for this very reason?" And also, "Oh my God, what have I written?"
There is also the upside that somebody might say, "Oh, I read this and thank God," because when I read it, I thought, "Thank God, somebody understands."
Indeed, that is the reason why I do make videos about self-harm. This is not only for people who do feel isolated, but also for people who have no understanding. Even though it's fiction, again, the whole point was to start the discussion, to get people thinking about issues such as rape and self-harm. And again, sorry.
And also another thing with this, it sounds like sometimes it can make you might censor yourself when you write and so on, because you're thinking about trigger warnings and so on. And if all this, then your book or your story will not be anything at all, because
the fact that I have written exactly what I wanted to write, and now afterwards I'm worried about trigger warnings.
But the next time you begin to write a book, and if you have this in the back of your head,
yes, that is a very important issue. Can we truly talk about and explore these issues when we are worried about trigger warnings, when we are worried about how people will react? Going back to Monday's topic, in fact, rape jokes, humour can be one of the best ways to discuss things when people usually wouldn't want to listen.
Yeah.
If you make the joke intelligent, if you really understand what you're talking about, then you can phrase the joke in a way that would plant the seed of understanding and knowledge in people's mind while they're laughing. So again, to say that no, we must never tell jokes about rape or self-harm, etc., is just as harmful as, perhaps even more harmful than just people making hideous, Miley Cyrus making hideous jokes willy-nilly. But yes, this is a deeply complex issue.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and Koki Pirate, your thoughts?
Well, when we're talking about in principle, is it good to be more accommodating? Yes. Even if they're an adult? Yes.
Yeah.
Can you ever be too accommodating? I think you could always be more accommodating. I don't think you can ever be too accommodating. Sometimes you do have to make sacrifices in order to be more accommodating, in which case it's a cost-benefit analysis. But accommodation in itself, I think, can only be a positive. So, I just want to say, in principle, I would say I'm absolutely for the trigger warnings. Before I go on to what I do want to talk about, is that there's actually a very notable lack of study on the topic of trigger warnings as opposed to many other sort of psychological issues. Um, a lot of people will talk about this or that diet, for example, if you're trying to lose weight. And the only diet that will work is the diet you stick to, no matter how effective the calorie intake is. And I think the same thing happens with any sort of trigger warning policy. Are people going to consistently use it? Because it can make things worse, actually, when you think about it. When there's some sort of trigger warning policy, does it create an environment where people with post-traumatic stress disorder will be drawn to, but then encounter something that triggers them? So I think that there really should be some... Oh, go ahead.
Personal responsibility is still an important issue. One fear I can imagine people having is that, if there's a trigger warning about rape or suicide on great classic literature such as The Great Gatsby, then people with PTSD or rape survivors, etc., people who have been suicidal are going to deliberately stay away from it. On the other hand, what I've learned from posting trigger warnings in the past is that many times people just need a warning. So a chance to brace themselves, to say, okay, this is going to include rape, and have time to mentally prepare themselves before they experience it. Rather than it just hitting them in the face out of the blue. But so again, personal responsibility is a factor. Please go ahead.
Yeah, no, there's definitely that brace themselves factor, and I'm not saying that trigger warnings are ineffective. I'm just saying that it seems as though there's a lack of study in the matter, like in terms of input from people with PTSD to going to places that do have a trigger warning policy versus going to places that do not have a trigger warning policy. Go ahead.
I would say, first of all, trigger warnings aren't necessarily effective in and of themselves. Trigger warnings, I would suggest they can't be effective or ineffective in and of themselves. It's like a mind your head sign. Either you read it and pay attention to it, or you don't. And what was it? Trigger in Only Fools and Horses. I kept banging my head on the doorway. I kept banging my head on the mind your head sign. Well, why did you keep doing that? Well, I couldn't read.
I guess there are a couple of things. I think what you're kind of misunderstanding what I'm saying at is, even if a library has a policy of posting trigger warnings on problematic books, do we know it's going to be effectively implemented on all of the relevant books? Because what was that?
This goes back to what I was saying before. We cannot. There are so many people who are in the world who are triggered by so many things that individually we can't. No group or institution like a library can go through and know what triggers everyone and label every book accordingly. So instead, I was looking forward to something like digital media, in which the community would progressively add more and more trigger warnings, etc. And of course, being the internet, you'd only receive the information that was relevant to you. Again, this is all pie in the sky, this is all hypothetical, but you grab something off the cloud that you want to read or you want to watch, and relevant because of your user identity, the relevant trigger warnings and the relevant issues, along with relevant advertising, etc. Hey, if you like this, then why not check out this other film or piece of literature? All of that would be a part of your download. But again, as it stands, even now, one of the things I'm concerned about is the trigger warning on the sales page on Amazon. As you say, does it cover everything? I've said drug addiction, I've said rape, I've said self-harm, I've said suicide, but, flicking through the book, is there anything else I should have said? If someone's okay with all of that, but... Oh, I didn't specify female on female rape. So is there a person who's okay with male on female, who isn't triggered by okay with? Wrong term. But is there someone who is not triggered by male on female rape, but is triggered by female on female rape? So again, it is a much more complex issue than simply slapping a trigger warning, but it's that the answer is progressive and will rely on the evolution of technology and the community. Yeah.
I mean, I can understand, this sort of hypothetical, what if technology makes this more accommodating. But my question is, are there a lot of studies? And actually, I've looked into this, and I think there should be more studies, rather. So it's not really a question. I'm saying I think there should be more studies on the topic as to whether or not trigger warnings are effective in helping people with PTSD enjoy, be it safe spaces or literature. And, in principle, when I rationalize it, it makes sense that it would be. I just find it rather shocking that there aren't a lot of studies, because maybe there are more effective approaches. You mentioned in the digital age, with where everything can be on the internet, maybe it should be a bit more in reach within the community of people who have PTSD, as opposed to some sort of outward policy. I don't know. I just mean the logistics of implementing something can be complicated, and I think that there should be more studies on people with PTSD asking, did this safe space actually help reduce the amount of times that you were triggered? Because a lot of them could have triggering stuff, some of it which is you're warned about, and some of which you're not. And so they may end up being more triggered going to that safe space than they would otherwise be.
Yes, I do agree, Koki, that we need to understand more. We need more studies. We need more hard data. Do trigger warnings actually help anyone? That is a very good question. However, I think one of the biggest issues regarding trigger warnings is, as far as I'm aware, they've only really come into existence in the last couple of years. That they are almost, not a direct, but an indirect result of the rise of the internet. The fact that, yes, people do have a space where they can talk about their post-traumatic stress disorder, they can talk about self-harm, the fact that they are rape survivors, the fact that they suffer from anxiety, depression, or have suicidal thoughts, feel compelled to commit suicide. That, yes, the rise of individual media and individual spaces on the internet, personal spaces, has given rise to this need for trigger warnings. So it's like any study into the effects of cars only 6 months after Mercedes-Benz created the first modern automobile, or whoever it was. The positive or negative effects of cars only 6 months after Ford released the Model T. It is such a new phenomenon. It is such an unknown quantity in our society that if we were to perform a study, what would we be studying? At the moment, you're talking, Koki, about the possibility of libraries or colleges with strict trigger warning policies. Even then, would they mark every book? Would every book be marked correctly? Versus libraries, college libraries, in which have no trigger warning policy. The unknown variables, there would be no way to control for there would be no way to control for all of the various factors which could render the study completely meaningless. We simply don't know enough, because at the moment trigger warnings are really just up to the individual. It's just something that individuals do as an act of courtesy. It is for myself, has been a long, slow process. Oh fuck, I should have put a trigger warning on this. Oh fuck, I should have put a trigger warning on that. Oh wait, should I put a trigger warning on this as well? So yes, Koki, I absolutely agree that we need to know more, but at the moment, it's an undiscovered country. We have yet to formulate any solid questions, so it's very difficult to have any hard, verifiable answers.
Yeah.
You okay, Coach?
Huh?
Oh, sorry, there was a bit of rustling. I wasn't sure. Carry on.
Yeah, I'm fine. No, you're right. I suppose the logistics of actually testing this kind of thing might be difficult. And granted, there are a lot of variables. Like, even if you were to take the clients of two different websites, have a little survey, how many of them have PTSD in website 1 and versus website 2, is the content the same? How effectively are the trigger warnings are? Because I said there's the possibility that a place with trigger warnings might draw in more people with post-traumatic stress disorder and inadvertently trigger a bunch of people based on the content that's not warned. And maybe someone who goes to the other place might be a bit more careful knowing that there aren't trigger warnings. But yeah, yes, it's difficult to test. But it's certainly something, before I feel like I can say anything conclusive in terms of implementation, it's something that we really ought to have hard scientific data on. So right now, well, the status quo isn't good. I will say that it's certainly something that before, we act, we need to understand what we're getting into. Because we don't want to either waste money on something that's ineffective or possibly something that can inadvertently hurt people.
I would say, Koki, that you're really kind of jumping the gun there. No, they are, because, excuse me, I've forgotten all about the policy that, yes, not the policy, the article that, yes, the student government is actually calling for this to be a policy of. Excuse me, I was so caught up in the internet trigger warnings. The fact that, as it stands at the moment, it is something that individuals do out of compassion. But first of all, how much money would it actually waste? As I say, it's one of the lines one of the famous lines, I can't remember who it's attributed to, when the US government, shortly after the American Revolution, were arguing over whether the Bill of Rights should be a part of the Constitution. So, why are you afraid of adding the Bill of Rights as well? Are you afraid of wasting paper? How difficult is it for professors? Because at the moment they're only talking about literature classes or books which are required reading. How difficult is it for professors or lecturers to write trigger warning on the top of the required reading on the relevant sections of the required reading sheet. I would compare that to writing trigger warning suicide, or this video includes graphic depictions of suicide in the description of one of my YouTube videos.
But then we come to another problem. If you say that it is required reading, and then you have a trigger warning, and then the students say, okay, I can't read it because of a trigger warning. How do you do with the person's grades? And that was also an interesting question. Well, will he, if you say no to the book, will he don't get the grade?
There have been issues like that regarding things such as religion and other personal beliefs. If the class requires something, I can't remember exactly, won't be able to cite an article, but there was one case in which a fundamentalist religious boy his religion would not let him work directly with girls. Sorry, it's your choice. If you don't want to take this class because you can't do the work, you can't complete the assignments because you're unwilling to work with unmarried women, then that is your choice. That is your responsibility. No one's forcing you to take this class. Feel free to transfer to another.
Yeah, but if you have a trigger warning for something that, say, panic attacks or something other that can trigger something for you, and if you have that warning, then you are like, I don't want to risk this. Mm-hmm. So you are forced to risk what you think can hurt you or not get the call. That's the thing. American universities, British universities, I'm sure Swedish universities as well. It's not like either you must do this course, you must read this book, or you will never get your degree. You can choose which classes you want to take. Absolutely. I just pointing out some. Yeah, if you put trigger warnings on every book, on many books, and so on. Yeah, so have another issue there too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so warning: this book on gynecology includes graphic depictions of of vaginas.
Yeah. Yeah. There was one case of a university college course where a student refused to watch and be tested on An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore because, while he claims it's for religious causes, I don't see the religious argument on climate change, but, because of his political beliefs. So, yeah, this has always sort of been a problem. But to clarify what I was saying earlier, in terms of, how much money would be wasted, I mean, you're probably going to have to hire an expert to go through all of these books and spend a lot of hours, evaluating each one and putting back an entire sort of faculty within the university. It could be considerably more costly than we would imagine.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that would be necessary. Again, these are books that have been studied, discussed, and taught for decades. I believe that The Great Gatsby was written in the 1930s, so it has been a fundamental part of any American literature class since at least after the Second World War. So, yes, again, this idea that you would, that an expert would be required to go through every single book. No, a simple trigger warning, this book includes a graphic depiction of rape. I believe that would be necessary because, again, it's not necessarily... You don't need an expert to say that this film includes a rape scene. It's there in the film.
That's the thing. If you make some kind of easy list for things that are going to be marked, then it's okay. So then you have your list, and then you see, okay, rape, boop, fix it.
I mean, to say that you don't need like an expert is like, I'm just thinking about the Farscape example you used, and many other examples.
This again, this is the wider issue of individuals being. But again, how would an expert? Would any expert? Would all of the experts as well be able to identify that Alex, for example? It would literally all boil down to the point made, the facetious, sarcastic point made at the end of one of the articles. We might as well just say bad shit happens in this book. Don't read it if you don't like bad shit.
Yeah. Well, part of me, is wondering about the exploration of other options, like, people... Well, it doesn't necessarily have to just be the PTSD community doing this, but, more of a quick resource for people with PTSD, with reviews of all of the books, all of the movies, that would specify what happens that might be triggering, how triggering, that kind of thing,
yes,
as opposed to putting it on, like, the bookmakers or the librarians themselves.
Yes,
I see this as a double question. It's like, if you take it on the school level, then you have to explore much more to actually implement it. But if you take it on the internet and your personal choice to actually make a trigger warning, it's wonderful if you think something in your book or in your music or whatever might trigger something. Why not put a trigger warning and say this might do something? I think but when it comes to the policy of school, that probably have to have more studies, I think.
And I would say just as a final point that I do believe trigger warnings or their equivalents, other ways of dealing with this issue, they are something which has to evolve from the needs of the individuals in question, not something which is imposed.
Okay, so final thoughts and goodbyes, and I'll go in the same order. So you, James, your final thoughts and goodbye.
Yes, Koki Pirates has raised so many important issues surrounding this subject. Where is the hard data? If any one institution were to impose a policy, would it actually do more harm than good? Are there other ways to deal with this issue? And ultimately, I think it just goes back to the point that this is a matter of evolution, technological and social, with the needs of the individual coming into play, being the main focus of other individuals, of corporations, of websites, of book publishers, and not being a great pronouncement saying this book has been labelled X for rape warnings and suicide warnings. No, the world won't work like that anymore. But either way, though, may the great holy donkey bless your house for 7 generations.
Aha, and Pingay, final thoughts and goodbye.
Final thought. I think the label thing, easiest way, if I think something in my songs or in my book at this stage, why not put some warning on it? Because I think it's a good thing if I can do that, if I think something is bad. So good thing, need more study, and have a wonderful night, and goodbye from Pingay.
Aha! And last but by no means least, final thought and goodbye from Koki Pirate.
I feel like I've been like the devil's advocate of this little session, which I guess I don't mind the role, but I just want to stress to anyone who has PTSD that might be watching this, I love you guys, and I really want society to be more accommodating towards you. This is more a question of...
That was the word.
Accommodating. Okay,
Yes,
yay, because...
It's about accommodating the individuals. There I was, pausing and stuttering like a retard for my entire goodbye, trying to think of that one damn word.
I'm sorry, the word just occurred to me when I was saying it. But yeah, I hope society is super accommodating to you and that you can go through your lives being triggered less. And, so long as trigger warnings are the only thing, I guess I'll do them when I can, or when it's necessary, rather. But yeah, this is still the Wild West. We don't know what's lurking around, how things are going to work out if we can tame the savage lands that is, sort of the navigating the internet and literature in the digital age. But may the hamster of prosperity rest upon your heads.
Well said.
And on that bombshell, it's good night from me.